Hi, we need a review on Nemesis. Nemesis is the greatest board game ever. Thanks for watching. The YouTube algorithm is not gonna like that. I'm gonna get it out of the way now. I'm gonna absolutely gush over this game. It is my favorite gaming experience I've had. The way it tells a story, how your actions have such an impact. There's so much interaction and so many different ways you can enjoy this game. My number one game was Mansions of Madness only a few weeks ago. I've only played this once, but I loved the experience and I cannot wait to get it to the table again. Same goes for all of my friends, they all really enjoyed it. We can't wait till it's played next, which is a lot of thumbs up. That's 5 thumbs up. That's a lot of thumbs. Now, there is no question, this takes a lot of inspiration from Alien. We've got the Queen, we've got the Intruders on a ship, we've got the hibernation and waking up with amnesia and not really knowing what's going on. We've got different types of characters moving around a ship and inevitably finding out their fate. But that's not a bad thing. Alien is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, one of the best horror movies, depending how you look at it, because there are some jumps in there. So why would I hate a board game that takes all of those and puts it into a board game format? And I would say, if Alien is the best of those genres in movie, Nemesis is definitely that in a board game. There is a ton of different Alien knockoffs and official Alien games which don't come anywhere close to capturing what Nemesis does for that genre. If you're unsure what Nemesis is, join me on the board as we take a look at this 1 to 5 player sci-fi game based on the Nemesis ship. You can mess with doors, you can change coordinates, you can set the place on fire, you can make rooms malfunction, you can manipulate noise, all to mess with your teammates or opponents, depending how you look at it. I said we were going to Earth. You don't need to be touching that. There are so many ways to have an impact and get your objective done whilst also messing over the other players, if you're that way inclined. My player group definitely was. This is one of the most tense and immersive gaming experiences I've ever had. Not just board games, I would say games in general. It is absolutely dripping in theme, and a theme I love, which is why it's so close and dear to my heart. By the end, it's a game that is hard to forget, and it's going to make it very difficult going back to normal life.
Mechanics log, stardate 99913.7. The others have fled the ship or died. It will return to Earth with or without me. If I do make it home, get milk.
And it's what I mean, you can retell these stories, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna most likely cry as you recall them. So my mechanic in our playthrough was tasked with, I needed to destroy the nest and I needed to make sure the ship made it to Earth. Quite a selfless one, I thought. It doesn't say I need to survive, although that might, I should probably look that up, that might be a rule. Don't ruin the story, okay? Let's just bear with me. Luckily for me, I got to the nest, we found it quite early, I was unscathed at that point. I managed to set a fire in there, which would burn away one of the eggs each turn. There was a few event cards which got rid of an egg, and also our scout needed an egg for some nefarious reasons, which will become clear later on. But it meant I got my task done super quick so I could help other people. Now, to be clear, in this game you don't need to. It's probably, I would say you're almost encouraged not to, as it's going to make your life a lot more difficult. But I'm a nice guy, so I went along with our pilot as he was in some serious trouble. He had taken a few big hits, he was bleeding out. I'm not sure if he was to blame. I mean, he had 7 contamination cards from trying to wrestle and punch up aliens. So there's some fault. For sure. As we find the emergency room, the bleeding takes a hold and we lose our pilot. It also turned out 3 of his contamination cards were infected, so even if he made it off, he was in some serious trouble. It was a rough day at the office for him. They all sing songs though, the Rocky Balboa of pilots. Our captain though, unfortunately lost function of both of his arms, tried to make a run for the hibernation, hit the floor, covered in slime, at the mercy of an alien intruder, I'm gonna redact the rest of this story just to keep it monetized. But he did not have a good time of it. Well, he had a good time of the game, he really enjoyed it. But what I mean is, even though your character might be going through hell, it creates a really fun story to live out through that character. It does feel like a kind of role-playing without getting into the character. Your actions are almost your words. It's a really interesting dynamic. I really did enjoy this game. Not quite as much as our soldier did though, as he somehow did his task, got to an escape pod on the perfect turn, got out with no real trouble. I don't understand what happened. I don't think he took any damage. He managed to do his quest to get his extra items. He did his objective perfectly and got the escape pod out. Then finally we get to the scout. My old buddy, my old pal. I gave him an egg earlier, helped him on his way for his task. He got that done and then proceeded to try and destroy the ship. Now everyone thought, to start with at least, that was his objective. After about half an hour it became very clear it wasn't. So yeah, that was a thing. It was getting pretty late, but I managed to chase him off into an escape pod before the ship was destroyed. Obviously I needed it to get to Earth, so it was going to have a big impact on me and the soldier actually, who had already gone. But he needed the ship itself to get to Earth, it turned out. He had just been lying about his objective, which was really clever. Not something I'd ever expect from the player. Normally he's all out aggression, but a little tactic this time. Anyway, the scout eventually did his task, got out in the escape pod. He had one hit left. Just one light wound would have killed him. I could have chased him down, but that wasn't my task. I just needed the ship to stay alive, so I had to keep my cards just in case. But yeah, it was an interesting one. It was a very interesting ending. It was a long ending, which because of that little battle meant instead of hibernating or getting to an escape pod and surviving as well, I succumbed to aliens and died on the ship as it made it to Earth with the nest destroyed. Now, I'm not saying my character was a hero. I mean, hero is a strong word, but I'm also not saying he wasn't. I'll leave it up to you guys. You let me know. My only gripe with the game would be it can be dragged out unnecessarily long. I feel like our game could have ended half an hour, maybe even longer earlier. But one player who shall go unnamed, for no real advantage, was trying to mess with my objective. So, although I would say that's more of a player thing than a game thing, really depends on your player group. So I would say my gripe, if that doesn't count, would be the amount of takedown and setup for this game. This is one you need set up for the game night ready. It could take half an hour. It's the same for setting down and packing away. I would say maybe even longer doing that, honestly. So try not to waste your time. For example, if someone prolonged the game for no necessary reason, that's a half an hour I could have used somewhere else. No, it's fine. Let's continue with the review. Great game. But all these reasons and more are why it is my favourite board game of all time. These unique interactions between players that you don't really get in other games. Your actions having more of an impact than anything else. It tells a story. It's a game that you're going to talk about with friends. Remember the time this happened. Remember the time that happened. Remember the time someone took an extra half an hour. The way it weaves a story feels very akin to something like Dungeons and Dragons. I wouldn't say there's necessarily role-playing in this, but you can do that. I feel like you can get into your characters, your objective. You can really get into that a little. And I do like that side of it, but I just mean how your actions have consequences. And in very few games is that a thing. Sure, it might set you back. It might give away your plot or other things in other games. But in this one, it will have such a huge impact. If you break the engines, the whole ship could crash and burn, meaning all of your friends and even you could fail your objectives. Burning down the nest before someone can get an egg and have it inspected could fail somebody else's task. There are so many ways to mess with players. There's so many ways in your actions have an impact without you even realizing. I think the way you play your character, the way you play the game, even if you don't mean to do it, has a massive impact on the game and the story itself. But should you play this game? I love it, my friends loved it, but will you? I'm gonna be honest, it is a harsh, difficult and very tense game. In our scenario, only 3 people passed their objectives and only 2 of them survived, which should give you some idea of the game and how it works. There was a few rules I was unsure of as we were going through, and I did take the easier route for those rules, so I do think the game is just going to get harder and harder. We were also playing on the easier side of the board, so things are going to develop, it's going to get a lot more interesting. But if you're looking for a game where you can just flip tiles, run through, destroy aliens with your guns, have a good time with friends, this isn't that game. Sure, you might kill 1 alien, you might kill 2, a few might retreat, but that will come at a consequence. You will take wounds, you will lose body parts, you will be potentially infected and host to a lava baby. I should say congratulations. I'm not going to, but I should. If you're not looking for the backstabbing, the rough time, the absolute grind through this game that it is, this isn't the game for you. I will say the word grind and all of those harsh negative words might seem like a negative, and for the wrong person they will be, but I will say, even though it is a grind, even though it is very difficult, it is always fun, it's always interesting. You want to know what happens next. You flip over the new tile, you find the new room. Finally, we've got the emergency or surgery room, we need that for somebody else, and all of it starts linking together in this really intricate story. But that is Nemesis, one of the most incredible games. Hits on everything I love in a game. It's got aliens, it's got horror, it's got dungeon crawl-esque aspects as you flip tiles and move around. You've got your own action deck, you've got crafting, you've got weapons, there's fighting, there's interesting events. There's so much in this game which makes me love it. If I had to pick right now, this would be my favourite game of all time, closely followed by Mansions. Don't get me wrong, there will be a separate video for that at some point. But for now, I give you Nemesis. Let me know any of your stories or comments on the game in the comments. I can't wait to read your stories. This is why I'm making this video. I want to hear all of your stories on how your games have gone. So for anyone looking at getting into this game, they've not just got my story, they've got yours, they've got, well, all of yours. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you want to see more board game and tabletop content. Make sure you're subscribed if you do. That's all I've got for this episode, and I will catch you in the next one.